Hey there, I just released a video on restoring this saw right here. And I don't have great expectations for that video, but I put a lot of work into it. Especially physical work, cutting out that handle with those hand tools, man. And I did cheat a little bit, okay? I was cutting with the coping saw. I cut out the bulk of it. The only cheating I did was I made the cut across to get, the bottom. So you can see, I did that on the bandsaw. Okay, so almost 100% pure. Just, I like hand tools. Hand tools have their use, but, and I can understand people wanting to see projects that are hand tool only, because that's maybe all they have or all they can afford, or like the space they have. They don't have the space for a shop. But I've got those other tools that I can use, right? So I think it's usually just enough to demonstrate that you can do the same things with a hand tool. It's just going to take longer. Right, and if you're into that, well, that's fine. Taking the bolts out of the saw, which are barely long enough, because this handle's a little bit thicker than the other one. Right, I did plane it down. When I originally cut it out, it was about 1/8 of an inch thicker, and the bolts would not go in at all. So I planed it down. I didn't show that in the video because I had an awful time with the plane. Okay, planing this figure wood. I didn't bother to take it and sharpen it. It wasn't very sharp to begin with, and I was getting frustrated. My arms were sore from using that coping saw just to cut the damn thing out. And it was tearing out grain all over the place. And eventually, what I did was I just cut it across with a chisel, sharp chisel. Made cuts across I should have actually filmed that because that was kind of interesting. I made cuts on an angle with the 1/2 inch chisel on an angle across to kind of make saw teeth in the side of the thing, and then planed it from there across the grain again, right? And then sanded it, of course. But yeah, I reduced it by about 1/8 of an inch overall, and I mostly did that on this side over here, right? Because this is the side that has the least amount of spalting on it over here. So I wanted to get it deeper so it shows that. And the important thing about the spalting is here, but it really doesn't extend into this thin part right here. And why I've taken the handle off right now is because I want to give it a sanding with 320, and then I was going to put some paste wax on there just to bring down a bit of the gloss. The tongue oil I have, after you put 2 coats on, like I went on 3 coats, it gets a little bit glossy, a little bit too glossy looking for me. So I'm just going to lightly sand it and wax it, and along with that I was going to wax the blade as well. Like what I used for waterproofing on this was the water-based poly, and that does an awesome job, okay? And it also makes it pretty slick. But the benefit of using that, all right, on a clean blade is that you can put wax on top of it, so you're getting more protection, right? And reapply the wax whenever you need it. So I was going to do that and talk to you guys, the typical Sunday morning thing to do. I don't think I'm going to be using this saw a lot, but, it's handy to have these kinds of things, when you need them. Like my rip saw up there. I should take that down to show the effectiveness of the water-based poly. Like here it is here. There's a little bit of rust on the other side because I had a magnet on there, and that did something, right there. But everywhere else is completely clean, or as clean as it was when I first did it. And I put the water-based poly on this, and it kept it rust-free. I didn't do the wax though. I don't use this very often, because I have a table saw. But like I said, it's handy to have these things. Some things you simply can't do by the newer methods. You have to have a handsaw for, or it just makes more sense to have a handsaw. Like, okay, if it's a choice of bringing a saw that you have to, well, not these days because you have battery powered saws, but like if you have to go on the side of your house and cut off a piece of trim to put in, it's good to have a handsaw to quickly do it, right? And same goes on the inside of the house. For a back saw like this, these are made for cutting miters and trim. You use that instead of the miter saw, and you get something done quickly without, making a big mess and blowing dust all over the place and making a big racket. A lot of people don't like the noise. Talk about the blade, all right? So I did the vinegar thing. I did the vinegar thing just to satisfy the people that would, say, why didn't you use vinegar, right? Because I knew even if it worked, I could clean off what it's going to take away in the matter of minutes anyway with sandpaper, right? And I knew I would probably have to sand it anyway because there was some pretty heavy rust on here, especially up towards the front. What else can I talk about? I got my pulleys and I got my bearings. Here's the 6-inch with the right size hole. Here's the 3-inch with the wrong size, half-inch hole for a 1/2 horsepower motor. And the bearings are just a normal 5/8-inch hole, 3/8 inch outside diameter. I got a 1 3/8. I got a 1 3/8 inch Forstner bit that these will fit right into, so that's convenient. The pulley, I'll probably use this pulley, but use the pulley that's currently on the motor on the saw right now, which I'm pretty sure is 3.5. It's 3.5. It should push the blade speed up to around 3,000 feet per minute. Ideal speed for a bandsaw cutting wood is in around that range. The speed this thing is running at now, because I think the bigger pulley is a 7-inch or maybe even 8-inch. It's slower than that. And I did that because I was kind of afraid to have it spinning faster because it's a homemade tool and the first bandsaw I ever built. So if I had my time back, I would have went faster, because faster cuts faster, right? You have a slower tool, it cuts slower, it seems safer, but then you're spending more time. Very much like the the coping saw to cut out the handle. I did, this is all a hand tool only project, and man, I worked it. You do the hand tool projects to show people that you don't need a shop full of tools to do stuff, even fairly impressive stuff. Impressive for some people, I guess. You can do it by using hand tools. You can, get hand tools cheap. If you're out looking for them, you can find them, fix them up, use those. I basically use the blade from the saw to make the cut into the saw to get that done. And what other tools did I use? Coping saw, an old brace, just with an ordinary drill in there. You don't need the actual drills. Like this will hold down to, I'm not sure, right, how low because there's a limit to how low this thing will go. This is a 1/4-inch bit in here right now. And I think it'll probably go down to something like 3/16 or maybe even 1/8 inch. Try it and see, right? If you have one of these things. The trick with these things is holding them while you're using it so that it's actually plumb, and drilling a 90-degree hole. Because my holes turned out to be not 90 degrees. Like, I haven't used these things for years and years and years. I mean, when you're a kid, you use these stuff. Okay, when you're a kid, when I grew up, you'd use this stuff because these things were all over the place, right? Like hand saws. This one, like, when I was an apprentice carpenter, I'd go and look for tools at Beaver Lumber, where this came from. See the label right here is Beaver Lumber. Anybody Canadian will recognize that. Canadian of a certain age, anyway, because Beaver Lumber was bought out by Home Hardware in 2000, and so the stores got rebranded as Home Building Centers. But $22, the 99 is missing, but I know that's what it was. So, like, it's kind of scraped off there. But that'll show you how much this tool is used. The paper label is still on there.
And though I can hide my cold gaze, and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there.